Hey guys, Nexius here, bringing you guys a weekly discussion topic. Today I will be discussing with one of my good friends. Do you prefer Danterius or Xfurl? What do you go by these days?
Danterius is fine, or extra, whichever one you want. Danterius is probably easier to say.
Yeah, Danterius is a lot easier. I usually go with that. So we will be talking about World PvP. So for many of you guys that know, I do play on Emerald Dream. I transferred at the beginning of Warlords. One of the biggest things about our server is World PvP, but not only just World PvP, but also roleplay involved with it. And going into Legion, a lot of things changed that a lot of people were either happy or not happy about. So I kind of want to discuss the World PvP subject, whether it's to get Blizzard's attention or just simply to vent about the issues. And Danterius is the guildmaster of an alliance guild called Order of the Blue Wyvern. How long has your guild been around for? Do you know? By heart, that is.
We just celebrated our 1 year anniversary back in the end of November, like really early December. So,
Oh, okay. So not entirely new, but basically a Warlords of Draenor, right? But I think you've been around for years on Emerald Dream. I'm guessing. I assume.
yeah, I came here. Um, God, I think it was back in the start of Kata. And I played with Boldest Lions for a little bit. Um, I I didn't really know too much about the game back then. I was super casual, and the most I would do is just log on and talk to people in guild chat and do Dragon Soul LFR. But what really got me hooked is I saw some of the formations that they would used to do with the AEC, and I heard about a lot of the World PvP that they used to do. Um, and looking back on it, it's a little zergy for my taste, but that's part of the RP allure of Emerald Dream is just seeing all these people with their guild colors on matching mounts, in formations and stuff like that, going out and just world PvPing and role playing together, and that's really what draws a lot of people to Emerald Dream.
Yeah, in the background, by the way, I didn't tell you this, but anyone that's going to be watching at this point, in the background, I'll probably have a lot of old Warlords of Draenor World PvP gameplay, so people can see exactly what we are talking about on what we kind of miss. Because obviously, I would assume your opinion as well is that the quality of World PvP has gone down quite a lot, going from Warlords to Legion. Or do you have a different opinion on that?
No, I would agree. In large part, the one thing that I really hated about Warlords of Draenor was the ring disparity. For those that don't know what that means, it's just some guilds would they would stack the legendary rings, and especially at a smaller scale of world PvP, whether it's 10v10, 15v15, 20v20. If you have a group of 10 people and 7 of them have rings, and you're fighting a group of 10 people and one of them has a ring, you're just going to get carried simply, you know, by their rings alone. If you're in that group with 7 people that have them, and there were a lot of fights like that. There were a lot of guilds that had more rings than us. Towards the end, we kind of caught up a little bit. That's one of the nice things about Legion is you don't have to worry about that. But there are a whole other host of factors that really make it even more imbalanced than that. Because there are ways to work around that to some extent.
Yeah, I would have to agree. Like, Warlords of Draenor, I feel was pretty decent. Like from my experience with like Pride of Lothar, for example, we would attack like Silvermoon City. Like the phasing wasn't a huge issue there. Like obviously, Tanan Jungle, for example, had a lot of phasing issues. But that's one thing I think they did okay with in Legion is phasing doesn't seem to be a huge problem. I mean, Sharding's a whole different beast, but in terms of phasing, where they could run away and then they would switch phases, so it would kind of be like taking a skirmish queue, for example, so they wouldn't die. Like I feel like that has gone down quite a lot. If I want to chase someone across High Mountain, for example, I can still do that. So, like that's one thing from Warlords. I'm glad has kind of been fixed as well going into Legion.
Yeah, I'd have
Go
to.
ahead.
Oh, sorry about that. I'd have to really agree with that. There were times in Warlords when I'd be in Stormwind and not even a Warsong group, but 30, 40 people will go into Stormwind and they're on the King, or they're just in Stormwind fucking around, and There were times when you could be right over them in the air, or on the ground, wherever, but you could literally be right next to them, and sometimes, you'd be in a different phase, and you'd just have to be, almost in the middle of their raid to see them. And that killed a lot of some of the funner fights in World PvP, at least, was the phasing. But you are right; they've kind of fixed it this expansion.
Before we go into other topics, I just want to mention some of the specific topics that were requested by viewers and people on Twitter and stuff was sharding, which we've kind of just gone into, rewards and incentives for participating in World PvP, the removal of the World Defense Channel. I'm sure that's a very hot topic you probably want to talk about as a GM for RP PvP. Templates being disabled, that one's got a little bit on each side, which we can discuss. And then, of course, followers, toys, legendaries, and other things like you mentioned with the legendary ring and warlords, which basically fits into that topic. So I'll probably ask you a couple questions throughout the whole discussion. So I guess we can continue on with sharding. But before we go into that, I guess I'll just ask you the first question, which can go in more in depth with that, is how do you feel about World PvP this expansion?
Um, wow, that's there's a lot to talk about on that. It's kind of hard because this is the biggest and the most involved in World PvP that my guild's ever been. Um, I don't want to put ourselves on a pedestal, but we are really one of the only active Alliance World PvP guilds left in World of Warcraft, and it's not necessarily a good or bad thing. I think a lot of guilds that are looking to preserve their longevity have gone more into the PvE side of things, and that's totally understandable, but that's just not really what most of us enjoy. We do have a Mythic raid team, and we do Keystones and stuff together, but most of us came to Emerald Dream, stayed on Emerald Dream, and play on Emerald Dream for the World PvP side of things. It's definitely not as good as it was in past expansions. It's actually probably objectively the worst that it's ever been. But that doesn't mean that there's not ways to find enjoyment out of it, and we do. Whether we take 5 and we go to an emissary hub and just poke the bear until a fight comes out, or city defense, going to other cities, hunting down rival guildmasters, any number of things. I've always been a big proponent that the game is what you make it, and that doubly goes for World PvP. I see a lot of people saying it's dead, and it's not what it used to be, and it's certainly not as active as it was. There aren't as many World PvP guilds as there was. That's definitely for sure. But I wouldn't say it's dead. There's still a dedicated core of people keeping it alive. And it's not easy, but it's fun, and that's why so many people come to this server. If I wasn't World PvPing, there's better servers for RPGs. There's better servers for arenas. There's better servers for raiding. There's even better servers objectively for roleplay. Warm Rest Accord, Moonguard, a lot of the EU servers have really heavy RP scenes. But it's hard. It's like I said, it's the worst I'd say that it's ever been, but that doesn't mean that it's not worth doing.
Yeah, I definitely agree. One thing I want to touch on real quick is the whole pedestal for your guild. I don't think you're putting yourself really on a pedestal. As someone who was Alliance all the way through Warlords, and then obviously I switched Horde now, I guess you could say most of the organized kind of World PvP and whatnot is guilds focused. I know that's how it is for RP, for example. But I would probably agree. I don't really see much activity, but for example, you're probably the only guild that takes me to anywhere, right? Pride of Lothar doesn't really do anything anymore. Horde side, obviously, Warsong Battalion's always doing something. I guess ISR, or Iron Swan Regiment, is doing it as well. But I don't see a whole lot of activity on Alliance side. That's one of the main reasons why I transferred was because I felt Alliance was too passive. I know some guilds were there kind of doing stuff like Division 7, but I would say at this point into Legion, you guys probably are one of the few left that are still trying to be active. So, I mean, I definitely agree on that point. In terms of World PvP, I would agree as well. I think it's the worst it's been now. Like, I didn't really World PvP a whole lot, like in Wrath or Cataclysm, not really miss either. Definitely in Warlords, especially with Tanan coming out, and then of course, kind of in Legion. I kind of stopped though because of just how everything is with the one shot or die getting one shot. But I definitely agree with everything you pretty much said on that. Is there anything else you want to say regarding your opinion on World PvP this expansion?
Um, not really. And again with the pedestal thing, I don't want to put our guild above others. And there's definitely some other guilds that do stuff here and there, and some up and coming guilds. But like I said, a lot of guilds that are preserving the longevity of their organization, they're turning more to the PvE side of things. And I can't really stress enough that that's not something that we look down on. Whatever. Warbringer, they used to be a big world PvP guild, but their membership and their leadership just didn't enjoy it anymore. So now they're PvE focused, and that's fine. That's what they enjoy, and that's the direction they want to go. I don't have any animosity towards it, anything like that. But there are just very few guilds left that really focus on world PvP, and we're just one of the few that do.
Yeah, you're definitely accurate on that as well. I noticed, because like in the pre-patch back in like August, I was thinking to myself, should I just transfer now for rated arenas and stuff to find people, or should I stay Alliance? I ended up staying Alliance just to see, like for example, Pride of Lothar, but they're kind of the same way with Warbringer now, where they kind of feel less enthusiastic about World PvP, and now they're more focusing on PvE related stuff. There's a lot of other guilds too that have kind of turned to that as well. I mean, PvE is really great this expansion. It's just from a PvP perspective, it's kind of lacking. Do you kind of want to go into some of the specific topics that people requested in the reasons why we feel the way we are in terms of PvP this expansion?
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so we kind of talked about sharding a little bit. Like you gave that example in Stormwind. Is there anything you want to elaborate on sharding specifically?
Um, yeah. There's a couple things. It's For us, it really hasn't been as bad as a lot of other people have made it out to be. It's really hit or miss. You can be in your own phase. I could be just a lone alliance out in the world questing. I go to an emissary hub to turn in my quest. And depending upon the phase that I'm in, I could be surrounded by 5, 10, 15 horde, whatever. Or I could be with in a balanced ratio. But the thing, it's a little hard to explain, but you know there's so Emerald Dream, obviously the server, and then Sharding, it kind of splits up Emerald Dream into several different phases, and that was to alleviate the lag and the stress in the server at Legion launch. So physically there's 60 people, whatever, at an emissary turn in, but there's several shards on the server. So you can be in any number of different shards, various shards, whatever. And it really depends which one you get into. If you're going to see more horde than more alliance, vice versa. If you're going to be in your own shard. I've had that happen to me more than a couple of times. And it's nice because it really alleviates lag. Um, and sometimes when some of the bigger guilds come out with the Zerg, they get sharded off into their own phase. So that's like most notably WSB. They bring 40 people to a zone, they get sharded out. And that typically happens to us when we bring more people to, is we'll find ourselves in our own shard, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. That promotes more small scale stuff, and that's fine. And one thing to note, when you do get a world PvP fight going, if each side is escalating, you bring 5, another side brings 7, you get 7, vice versa, or so on and so forth. the shard will keep up with you. You know, you'll stay in the same phase. You guys can fight each other. You know, you won't get phased out. It doesn't matter how big the groups get. You'll stay in the same phase. So that's one thing that we do a lot is we'll start small with just a couple of people, and then you know, we'll work our way up, and that kind of alleviates you know, the possibility of us ending up by ourselves, you know, in a zone because we're in, you know, our own shard. So there are ways to work around it, and you know, I won't get into all of them, but you know, it sucks, and it really kind of kills the massive multiplayer feel to World of Warcraft. But it's not, you know, it's not game killing, it's not game breaking, and you know, worst comes to worst, go to the old world, try to pick a fight there. You know, cities, crossroads, places like that. It's, you know, it's not as bad as some people make it out to be. It's definitely aggravating, but you know, it's like I said, it's not game breaking.
Yeah, I would actually also agree with that. I know a lot of people claim that sharding is one of the biggest culprits for killing world PvP this expansion because we didn't have sharding in Warlords. We had the phasing where you entered a certain area. I think that really affected it, especially if someone was trying to prevent themselves from dying. They would exploit that. But with less of that, I think trading the phasing for sharding, I think, is a better trade off. I think the sharding is good. I don't mind it right now. I haven't really been severely affected by it. I've joined a few fights like with your guild. We were on that warden tower. I didn't feel any sharding at all. I don't think we ever experienced a situation like that. There were a few I was with the mercenary outfit by I think it's Meridel in that one place, Suramar. I think that's the place that's called. We were facing Division 7 there. There wasn't a situation where like half the raid was in one phase or anything. So I think sharding seems to be okay. I think it affects. I think that's what you said. It affects more of the large scale groups like Warsong Battalion. Is that correct?
Yeah, it does. You know, Wartime Battalion, Division 7, when they were bigger, they've significantly shrunk. You know, and most notably, Hydra has been coming over recently. And for those of you that don't know what that is, it's just a group of players from different realms that do pre-made AVs. You know, they used to do Ashran together. They'll do World PvP. You know, it's essentially just an honorable kill farming group. And you know, it is a Zerg group, so they'll bring. We wiped them last week, I believe, and you know, they had around 60. And they were just farming Thunder Totem. You know, so we engaged them and you know, saw how many they had. And we got more, and we ended up wiping them. But it mostly affects stuff like that. You know, if you're in a 5v5, you might find yourself in a different phase than somebody that you're hunting, trying to find whatever. But chances are it's not. You know, chances are it's not going to affect you as much as if you're trying to bring a 40 man to a zone. You know, that's mostly what it's kind of stopping right now is the big Zergs, and you know, that's completely fine in my opinion.
Yeah, the large scale. If it's only affecting large scale, I'm okay with that. I recall one specific time when I was in Pride of Lothar back in the 7.0 pre-patch in the summer. I think Warsong Battalion was trying to get the first Anduin kill, and Kagrenak set up a defense group, and I think when we went into the throne, half the group was in a different phase, and then the other half was with Warsong, and then we ended up wiping. I haven't really experienced anything in terms of like large scale like that or defense rate in a while, so I have no idea if that's still the case. Is that still the case with sharding, where if you're trying to attack a city boss like Garrosh or not Garrosh, Sarfang or anything, do you know if there's any phasing still there for sharding?
Um, I believe they removed it for the old worlds. I want to say I haven't noticed it in you know, the time that I've been doing World PvP. Since Legion launched, I haven't been to Horde cities very often because I'm not a huge fan of city PvP in general. But I don't believe it's still in the game, and there might be a blue tweet somewhere out there that confirms it one way or the other. But I'm fairly certain that it doesn't affect old world cities. So
Yeah, I hope they did change that because I mean, trying to defend a city like it's already annoying enough trying to defend off like a Warsong Battalion 60 plus group, but then you have half your raid phased out from sharding. I hope that's not the case. It's probably my only concern with this expansion is when it comes to cities. But I'm sure we can just move on to another topic now since. Actually, one more quick thing about sharding. So, what would your general consensus be on sharding? Do you think it's good? Is there any changes you would make? Do you think it's bad?
Um, I mean, in a perfect world, I would probably get rid of it. And that would enable WSB to Zerg more. Guilds like WSB to Zerg more go, into the Broken Isles and just take 60 and sit on, an emissary hub or, sit on Meridil when, 7.1.5 comes out and the new quest line comes out. Raid entrances, stuff like that. So that's one downside, but I think the benefits of it would vastly outweigh the negatives. Like I said, in a perfect world, I don't think it would be there. I understand why it was, put into effect at Legion launch. But if I had to look at the sub numbers right now, I wouldn't be very surprised if they were down, at least 5 to 7% from what they were at the start of Legion. So.
All right. I guess we'll move to the next topic, which would be rewards and incentives for participating in World PvP. I know in Warlords we only had like the honor per kill, and players could use the honor for whether it was resources at the trade goods vendor, or it would be to purchase PvP gear. But now we don't actually get any kind of gear or anything from World PvP. All we get is just honor, which goes towards honor talents. But especially without prestige now, like losing your talents, it really doesn't matter a whole lot. What's your whole thought on the rewards and incentives?
I think in a perfect world, I would change the PvP towers. You get X number of honorable kills, on opposite faction players at the enemy's PvP tower. Say I'm Alliance, I have to go to the Horde PvP tower, kill, 25 players, and, maybe I get an honor token and an artifact, an artifact token, give me some artifact power. I would probably have tiered rewards. It starts out with just something like that, and then maybe a piece of gear, then another piece of gear, and maybe when you really get up there, maybe like 2,500, 5,000 kills at one of these towers, you can get a mount, something like that, or a cosmetic transmog piece, something like that. There really haven't ever been significant rewards to World PvP. Maybe arguably aside from vanilla, but it for a lot of people it's never about the rewards, and I think that's a good way to try to incentivize people to get into it now. But people that have been into World PvP and got into World PvP just got into it because they just enjoyed it. And I don't know if that's something that you can necessarily recreate and try to instill in other people. But I definitely think there could be better rewards for the PvP towers and stuff like that.
Yeah, I would agree. Like, I mean, I think they did a really good job. Make like in Warlords, we didn't really have anything. We were forced to basically just sit in our garrisons. But in Legion, we actually have reasons to go out, like the Warden Tower quests. And it starts easily with just like a group of two or three just defending a tower, and then the opposing factions trying to get that quest done. So then they group up, and then you get your little small scale, and maybe in some cases it even escalates. So I really like the world quests. I just think something needs to be done to improve it more. I'm not really sure how they could do that, but like you said, small rewards. The basic things, whether it was a random piece of gear or the honor. If only they had the honor currency still, or even the tabard, as you stated. I remember in Warlords there was, I think it was the Garrison, the Gladiator Sanctum. There was like an achievement to get, I think, 5,000 honorable kills out in the world, or something of that sort. Something like that I think would definitely encourage more people. But like you said, me and I guess you yourself, but also myself, we just do it for the sake of PvP. We don't need like some gigantic reward.
Yeah. even just small stuff like that incentivizes people to go out into the world, more so than you would think. But there really isn't anything like that at the moment. Honestly, you can get to max prestige, you can get honor level 50, and you can get the mount that comes from doing the free for all arenas almost entirely without you know actually PvPing. I believe the only arena that you actually need to kill other players in is the Black Rock Hold arena, and they might, they might correct me on that. But it's just, I saw Jalen post a thread on the general discussion forums the other day. It's just nuts how many people don't want to PvP to get the little amount of PvP rewards that are actually in the game. It's almost it's one of those facepalm things. People are complaining, that they're seeing Horde at towers, or they don't want to have to kill Horde to get honor, and it's just it's nuts, honestly.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I remember seeing that thread too. That's one thing I'll also quickly mention is there will be a couple of threads in the video description. There's one I have from Emerald Dream. I was asking other people's opinions, and then I'll have to find Jalen's again. I think there might be a couple others relating. So I'll try and find whatever threads I can and place them there. For anyone that wants to show support, bump them, voice their opinions, I'll have those threads down below. So overall, we basically covered rewards and incentives. I think I think what it comes down to is you don't really need a whole lot in terms of world PvP. I think it's more like that's more of an arena thing. I know that's a huge issue for arena participation, but that's a whole different topic in itself. But for world PvP, I think we've pretty much covered it. Nothing really else that has to be said on that topic. I think we should go to the next hot topic, the removal of the World Defense Channel. This is a huge one right now for Emerald Dream. As obviously you know, but for the viewers that don't know my server, Emerald Dream, as stated earlier, is like a roleplay player versus player server. I can just give a good example from my old guild, Pride of Lothar, before I transferred Horde. Roleplay player versus player is one of the biggest reasons people come to this server and why it sticks out compared to other servers like Danterius and other PvP servers. It's because we have guilds like Pride of Lothar or Danterius' guild, Order of the Blue Wyvern. We will pick a base. For example, we had one zone in Warlords of Draenor where the Alliance would hold up in Feralas, and I think it was in Feathermoon Stronghold, and we had a Horde guild or not Horde guild, Horde faction set up in Desolus. So we essentially had Feralas versus Desolus, and players would role play there, and it would inspire PvP battles in between the two. I actually have some videos showing this. I'll try and throw it in right here when we're talking about it, if not at some point in this video. So discussing the removal of the World Defense Channel, I guess I'll let you cover the importance of it. So it's up to you, Danterius, if you want to explain.
Yeah, sure. This is another one that I don't personally have a huge problem with. I know a lot of people do, and I know it's really hurt a lot of roleplay PvP, because now a lot of guilds don't necessarily know when their guild hub is being attacked or pinged or raided, whatever, by the opposite faction until they get there. And back in Warlords, that wouldn't be as big of an issue, because a lot of people were primarily hanging out at their guild hub. I'm sure you spent a lot of time at Tyr's Hand and Hearthglen, whatever that small flight path area
Chillwind
is.
Camp,
And
right?
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, Chillwind. I'm sure you spent a lot of time there, and that's simply because you didn't really have anything else to do in the world, right? Well, now there's world quests, mythic pluses, weekly quests, emissary stuff, Suramar questline, all this stuff. So guilds can't be at their quest hub, not quest hub, at their guild hub, 24/7. It's not realistic. People don't like to do it, and they don't have time for it. people are out doing stuff in the world. They're doing, content that rewards you, content that progresses your character, et cetera, et cetera. And, as much as people love roleplay, as much as people love world PvP, RP, PvP, it doesn't really give you anything. You don't necessarily get, a reward from it, and it doesn't really, progress your character. Um, so that's a tough thing. It really helps, or I should say, it did help guilds, kind of police their own personal RP bases. And now that it's gone, it definitely, it's killed a lot of PvP in that regard. Another thing is, Horde can, sneak into Stormwind now, and unless you're in Stormwind, or, you see someone in Stormwind or Orgrimmar or whatever city, unless you see someone there, you hear about it firsthand, you're not going to know that they're there. You're just not. There are a couple ways around that. You can have a second account, just a starter account, open. You can be doing /who's. You can have your friends in the opposite faction doing /who's. That's something I've done for a while, anyways, and that that really helps in more than one way. But you're not going to be as quick jumping the gun, without world defense as you would be with it.
Yeah, it's definitely the case. I know, like, not even just guild focused wise. For example, I would sometimes have world defense channels set, and whenever I would see something being attacked, I would quickly head over there. So, for example, I could be sitting in my garrison, and world defense would tell me, "Oh, this town in Zangarmarsh of Outland is being under attack." So then I would fly over. I'd see one or two people. I would try and maybe 1v1 or 1v2 them, and then fun times are had. It's kind of harder to do that now because usually people aren't in those areas, and even if they were, how would they be able to notify you? Because they could be a random person asking for help, but how can they tell me in the garrison unless they transferred over to the main city and then called it out? But no one's gonna do that, and it's kind of pointless. So I feel like with the loss of the World Defense Channel, the communication of knowing when the city is being attacked and when it's not is a lot more difficult. When it comes to like setting up, like you said, Chillwind Camp and Tyr's Hand with Pride of Lothar's base, it's a lot easier to know because a lot of people hang out there, like you said. But in terms of those lone wolf kind of situations, it's a lot harder. And then on top of that, if you're the one that's attacking, you're trying to spark PvP. It's a lot harder to spark it when no one even knows you're attacking it in the first place. I think that's probably the biggest hit from its removal.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I know a lot of people got their PvP from chasing world defense pings. I've not been that type of person. I'm one of those people that will do PvP on my terms, and that's just when I'm feeling like it, when the guild's feeling like it, when we want to go out and smash up some horde, take a zone over, whatever. Then we'll go do it. And I defend cities here and there, mostly against the smaller guilds. I have tried defending against WSB a couple of times this expansion, but anytime they see the alliance mobilizing, they'll make a move to bring in more. And there's several ways that they do that. And I won't go into the spies that they use and the cheap underhanded tactics and stuff like that, because it's you could do a whole different episode on that. But for the little man that just likes to solo world PvP, chase pings, etc. That's gone now, and that's really too bad that you can't just log on and try to queue up for some world PvP, and you see Elwyn Forest is being attacked, go hit Elwyn, go see who's there, but that's unfortunately that's not a thing anymore.
Yeah, I think the part that really kind of makes me angry about it is like Blizzard has a habit of doing this for a lot of things where they just remove something for absolutely no reason, and that's how I feel they went with this one. I don't really know why they had to remove it, if there was an issue or what. They just simply flat out removed it for no reason. and they didn't really give a reason, basically. So I think that's the part that really annoys me. I don't know about anyone else, but I just think it's ridiculous that they just removed it flat out, no reason, nothing. If there was a problem, like it was interfering with sharding, okay, I would understand, but I don't even think they even notified people that it was removed. People just happened across of just seeing that it wasn't popping up or anything.
Yeah, I've always said that Blizzard's the type of company that, they'll tell you that, you want something and, it's not necessarily what you want, and, they'll just force it down your throat, or, they'll take something away and you'll be like, oh, we like that, we were using that, and, they'll be like, no, you weren't, you don't know what you want. I've always seen them as that type of company, and unfortunately it doesn't seem like they've always necessarily been faithful to, their player base, and that's a real tragedy, because I think that's where, a lot of the loss of subs comes from is, they're trying to please new different crowds instead of really sticking to their guns and, really, really trying to please the people that have been playing this game for 10 plus years.
Yeah, unfortunately. We think we do, but we don't. For the next topic, we have, I guess, templates being disabled. So, templates, of course, work in instanced PvP. That would be battlegrounds, rated battlegrounds, skirmish and rated arenas, Ashran. I think that's pretty much it. I don't think Wintergrasp and Tolbrad have them. Do you know if they have templates?
I don't believe they do.
Okay. So templates are kind of a pretty big topic too. A lot of people, part of me even thinks so too, that because Blizzard is focusing around balancing PvP through templates, that leaves things like dueling and uninstanced PvP, in this case world PvP, at towers or Broken Isles or even the old world. A lot of it has pretty much been killed, at least to most people. Like for me personally, I love dueling, but I haven't dueled at all this expansion because, well, without templates, I can basically one-shot somebody with just Strike of the Windlord. So there isn't any kind of proper balance there. So I feel like if I was to ever 1v1 someone, I would have to get two other people and 1v1 war game, basically. So uninstanced PvP seems like it's a huge problem. I don't know if it's templates or what it is, but a lot of people kind of attribute it to templates. I actually have this one quote here, but before I go into it, what's your aspect on templates? Do you think they should be introduced into World PvP?
To be honest, I think if Blizzard didn't try to go with the philosophy of PvP gear not being a thing this expansion, I don't think this would really be an issue at all. I don't think the model that they had in Warlords of Draenor is broken. I actually think it was really balanced. Unless you're decked out in Mythic Hellfire Citadel gear with, the Soul Capacitor, Trinket, and, a couple other key pieces, it's not something that was really totally or wholly unbalanced. But Blizzard tried to make it so gear didn't matter in PvP this expansion, and they really ultimately failed at that. And in turn, they ended up messing up the balance as far as world PvP goes.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think it's just one of those situations.
User joined your channel.
Oh, did someone just join our channel? I don't know if they did.
Hi.
Oh, hello. That's funny.
Get out of here, Bob. What?
User was moved out of your channel.
It's all good. Bloopers. So, anyway, in terms of the whole gearing thing, I definitely agree. I think it's one of those situations where it's like Blizzard does their typical thing. You just don't change anything that doesn't need to be fixed. The whole PvP gear with the trinkets giving you mitigation, I think it was 15%. Like, it was fine. Of course, you had that off person, like you said, decked out in mythic gear and stuff. That's fine. But now, going back into Legion here, anyone with a higher item level, so basically PvE wins, completely stomps anyone that just purely PvPs. And I think it's really unfortunate. Like, it's not even just templates. As you said, it's also the gear system that they did. If they kept it the way it was in Warlords, I think it would be a lot better off. So I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, and one thing to note is, not only is the PvE gear higher eye level, but it's also literally in every case, better itemized, better stats. There are some set bonuses that work on World PvP as well. It's just all around, it's all around better. Why grind out PvP for gear and get, pieces that, may have, one of your good primary stats, well, not primary, but secondary stats. Um, when you can just go do PvE and get, your best in slot stats on a piece, just by doing one mythic dungeon or, one mythic plus dungeon. Um, the gear is just through and through a lot better.
Definitely, yeah. Unfortunately, I mean, I think the only real gear issue in Warlords, I guess, was like Legendary Ring. But other than that, I think it was mostly fine. You could just get your PvP set, and like even if there was a small advantage from PvE players, which there wasn't, aside like the Mythic gear, it's nothing compared to what it is now. Where if I were to have an Alt Windwalker and only gear through PvP, not only like you said the stats and everything, but there's no set bonuses on them either compared to a raid tier set. The trinkets are kind of meh in comparison, especially considering legendaries on top of that and everything. So yeah, I definitely think PvP gear versus PvE gear, there's a huge gap there. I think it's also kind of related to this one quote here that I saved from Blizzard. I'll let you know what it is. I'm kind of interested in what your opinion is on it. So somebody asked this one Blizzard employee, "Would you look into getting PvP templates working in World PvP?" And his response was, "This is something we could theoretically do. We just disagree that it's the correct choice for World PvP. Inherent imbalances are part of what makes World PvP fun. Speaking personally, some of my memories of World PvP have come from a bunch of friends together to take down one or two enemies that significantly outgear us, or getting my revenge on someone that ganked me earlier by catching them off guard in the middle of a world quest. There's obviously going to be some gray area there. There's a point where it stops being World PvP and instead just becomes griefing, and not everyone is going to agree on exactly where that point is. Generally speaking, however, unfairness, both taking advantage of it as well as overcoming it, is part of the appeal of World PvP." So what do you think?
Um, I kind of think that's a stupid blanket statement on their part. There have always been inequities in World PvP, and there will always be inequities in World PvP. But the fact that one player that's more experienced, higher rated,
Rip dogs.
yeah, sorry about that. One player that's higher rated, more experienced, etc., etc. Um, the fact that he can lose to somebody that is an ultra casual. They might even click. Nothing against clickers, but somebody that just doesn't necessarily know how their class functions, as well as the other person, and they might not necessarily be as good. The fact that the better player will lose, because of gear, because of templates or lack thereof, and just wonky legendaries and the gear differential ratio. It's very disheartening. Going out in the world, and there and any number of things that can really multiply this, but just dying literally, like you said, you can one shot someone with Strike of the Windlord. I can use Cinder Ghost's Fury and take out 30% of someone's health. There are any number of modifiers that really just kind of make it worse and worse, and it's very aggravating. I don't consider myself an excellent player, but I consider myself to be decent. But I can go out into the world and die to any number of people just because their class is flavor of the month, or their template favors them more. They have better gear. Um, like I said, really any number of things, and that's what's aggravating for a lot of people about World PvP.
Yeah, in terms of the quote, like, I mean, I see where he's coming from about the advantages. Like, I kind of agree to an extent. Like, I remember Destry responded in the World PvP thread I made. He said he kind of likes some of the cool, advantageous stuff. Like, as a monk, I can get certain brews that increase damage by 10%, or unlimited rolls, or 30% movement speed at all times. There's a lot of different cool small things like that. Or in terms of advantageous stuff like engineering, whether it's the glider or the nitro boost or anything like that, I think is fine. I'm fine with that. But when it's so blatantly one sided, whether it's mythic gear versus someone that's got maybe 830 PvP gear because they just haven't progressed or anything, or like you said and I said, in terms of Windlord one-shotting or 2 million glacial spikes, or like there's so much craziness. Like, it's one thing to have an advantage, it's another thing to just simply one-shot someone so there's absolutely no chance. And like, I can see where Blizzard's coming from. I just think it's kind of at an extreme right now to where I think is a bad spot.
Yeah, I agree. The advantages, the disparity between the advantages, it's too great right now.
All right, so we touched on gearing, items, and templates. I guess we kind of touched on toys, legendaries, and followers too. I guess we can talk about followers specifically. I don't know if you want to, because like I know toys have gone down a lot going into Legion. In Warlords, we had things like Avianas, Tree Assassins Guys. Honeycomb still exists, but not nearly as bad since it's not paired with a bunch of stuff. But I guess it kind of goes towards the legendaries and everything else as well in terms of advantages. I don't know if you want to go in depth with followers and toys, or do you think we've pretty much covered that since it's similar?
Um, I would say, yeah, I'd say we kind of covered it. It's for some classes, it's just kind of nuts. Boomkins and rogues, classes with very strong openers and instant burst. As soon as they get a follower stun on you, that you should know is untrinketable. Once they get a very strong opener, you're dead before you can do anything. If you're lucky, maybe a shadow priest, something like that. Paladin, mage, you can pop your immunity, dispersion, whatever. But if you're not so lucky and you're another class, um, you're just fucked. You're just straight fucked. And you know, some classes followers are just a lot better.
Yeah, like Windwalkers have Terran Zoo, where he would just drop. I think you need two or more enemies near you for him to come down. But when he does, he'll stun everyone in the area for 3 seconds. It used to be, I think, 8 seconds, so I could just do whatever I pleased to the person. It was pretty ridiculous. I think some followers are still really strong, but like you said, it's like an advantageous thing. We already kind of covered it. Like, it's having a follower, I feel like, is no different than a rogue who got Will of Valera, which makes them almost invincible because of that heal over time with feint. So like, I think it's all basically the same category. I don't know if there's too many advantages, or I think it could easily be solved. Like, followers, I think, are always going to exist. I doubt they'll remove them, unless because like they toned down Garrison Table into whatever we have now, the Order Hall table. It's a lot less now. Who knows? Maybe next expansion or whatever they stop altogether with followers, which would be really nice. And then in this case now, if they were to somehow disable legendary effects upon PvP, which I doubt they would after seeing that quote where they're not really sure about templates being the answer. I don't know. What do you think they could do to improve the huge advantage gap that we have?
Um, Honestly, bring the gearing system back to what it was in Warlords of Draenor. Legendaries as well. They would have to remove or tighten the gap between some legendaries, and Blizzard has talked about them wanting to do that. Maybe in future expansions, I believe it was um, Ion has a co-assist that said he was, they're looking at focusing on more utility-based legendaries. And I think that's what a lot of people would prefer. But if that's the case, some things like you said, the Will of Valera, whatever those rogue pants are, that gives you a massive heal over time when you use Feint. That's a lot better than the legendary that I have that Obliterate has a 15% chance to refund 2 runes. There's a huge gap in that. In a world PvP setting, I mean, yeah, I get maybe a couple extra runes. That goes towards a couple of obliterates or something like that. Maybe gets me some more runic power so I can heal myself. But the rogue can still just sit there and just spam Feint. Which for those that don't know is just a passive shield wall, anyways. And on top of that, you get that big heal over time effect. And again, there is a big disparity there. So it's really hard to say what they could do. I think going towards utility-focused legendaries instead of flat damage increases, flat healing per second increases. I think that's something they should really do, but templates either need to be figured out or reined in, or just go back to the Warlords of Draenor system of gearing. Why fix something that's not broke? They really shouldn't. They really shouldn't have fucked with it.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, honestly, we could probably do a whole discussion on how they could like just go back, and I'm pretty sure we're already like an hour in. So, I mean, we kind of discussed the followers' toys, the templates, most of the specific topics that most people requested. Let's go into some of the questions because I'm kind of curious. I don't know. I'm not even sure if you posted. Did you post to my PvP thread?
I don't know if I did off the top of my head. I might have, but I've got a horrible short-term memory.
I know I'm pretty bad with that too. So I asked you how you felt about World PvP, this expansion, which you explained somewhat at the beginning. Um, Here's the next one I have for you. What expansion, in your opinion, had the best World PvP?
Um, Hands down, I would have to say Mop. And I only really get the tail end of it, which makes me really sad as somebody that's a diehard World PvP fan. But objectively, Mop had the best, the most abundant, and the most fun. And there were a couple of factors that contributed to that. PvE gear, it gave you an advantage, but it wasn't a huge advantage like it is now. There were some warlocks that would go out onto the Isle with with their mythic or heroic Siege of Orgrimmar gear, and they get the Chi-Ji buff, whatever, and they could really, they could two-shot you with Chaos Bolt, or just global you, in a Shadow Fury, whatever. But for the most part, it's very balanced. 1v1s were pretty balanced, objectively, and there wasn't a huge gear disparity. There weren't wonky legendaries. There was the cloak. Didn't really, it didn't really give you the leg up over someone else. And there's also the matter of objectives out in the world. There were dailies, half hill, all the different factions, the Claxi, stuff like that. Isle of Thunder as well. These concentrated places, without phasing and sharding, that would bring players together. That it really spurred World PvP, and it really, you either fought or you died, and you oftentimes you get farmed, corpse camped, whatever. But also the PvP vendors being out in the world, and also the faction hubs being right across from each other, that helped contribute as well. There's a ton of World PvP at the vendors, and I know a lot of people really miss those fights. I know I do, but there were a lot of contributing factors, and some people will say vanilla, but vanilla world PvP was horribly imbalanced. Almost on par with where it is right now. If you had molten core gear, some of the best in slot trinkets, it didn't matter if you had Grand Marshal gear if you're a PvP, or you could very easily just get melted and not really have a say in it. So
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like I've seen some vanilla videos and stuff, and it's pretty much what you're saying right now. Like I was watching one Holy Pally video actually. Like he was even doing world PvP. He was doing a Arathi Basin, and he could barely heal anybody. They would just two or three shotted, and that's pretty much how it went. That's not even discussing like how the classes themselves played in terms of whether there was a lot of downtime or anything. So I would definitely agree in the sense of vanilla. In terms of favorite expansion, I noticed in the thread a lot of people also voted Miss Pandaria, and I would probably vote the same thing. I think it's mostly because, first of all, there wasn't any pruning, so there was a lot of skill in PvP in general. So, as someone like me who values skill level and skill gaps and everything, having answers, being able to outplay somebody, whereas compared to now it's one shot or be one shotted, I think the fact that it was a lot of fun to PvP in the first place is what made the activity a huge amount as well. But then also, you also mentioned Isle of Thunder, the vendors being out in the open, so people can go and provoke people into PvPing. You had Timeless Isle, where everybody was on this small island, so there was plenty of people to fight. You had also, I think it was called the Censor, that one item that would allow you to be attacked by your own faction as well. So if you wanted even more targets against you, you would be able to use the Censor as well. A few small interesting buffs like the Chi buff and everything on Timeless Isle as well. Some of them were a little overboard. Some of them were okay. I think the crit damage one, or the critical hit chance, was probably the biggest culprit. But overall, I would agree. There was a gear disparity at one point there. I remember, not Prideful season, but the season before that, I had like, I think the health I had was 463,000. I remember that because I always looked at it and I would get wrecked by PvE players. But as soon as they brought in the Prideful season, after many people were complaining, the balance was a lot better in that case. So I think that's the other thing as well. Is like, I mean, it's not that they need templates or anything, because in Miss Pandaria they had that gear disparity kind of still. I think they just need to buff PvP gear to make it more viable, because right now you can only get it if you're really high rating, and there isn't really any kind of proper reward in PvP to make players PvP over PvE, whether it's the artifact grind or anything of that sort. So everyone's the biggest argument is, why PvP when you can just PvE, get your artifact power much more efficiently, get better gear, and then of course you stomp anyone that only PvPs.
I agree. And actually, one thing that I would do if I could is I would just buff PvE gear, just the base eye level. Like, right now, say you go to your 10-2s, wins, whatever, it's the first week of the season, you're going to get an 855 piece. I would buff it right up to 870, and then, if it Warforges, Titan Forges, your rating goes up, whatever, make it go up to, probably up to, but not over, like, eye level 900, and, I don't think that would be game breaking. There are a lot of Mythic Raiders that would be upset, but there are very, very few classes that, they get their best itemized stats from PvP gear. There's a lot of versatility gear. The only spec that I can think of off the top of my head that really benefits from versatility is Mistweaver Monks, and I don't even know if that's necessarily the case anymore. But like I said off the top of my head, that's the only one that I can think of. But I'm not 100% sure on that. But the gear wouldn't, it wouldn't put PvEers ahead if they did PvP, because just the stats, they're not necessarily, properly itemized for most specs, or, they're not going to give you a leg up. But I also think that would help, kind of alleviate the gear differential in World PvP. Um, and it's not necessarily the best fix or the right answer, but that's something that I don't think would really kind of break the bank either way.
Yeah, that's like the gearing in PvP itself is its own issue in terms of like a topic. But yeah, definitely the easiest way definitely is, I mean, PvP gear needs to somehow become more competitive compared to PvE gear. I know some PvE players would complain, "Oh, we're going to see PvP geared players in our raids," or "Hey, I don't want a PvP to get or to remain competitive in gear." Well, it's not like we're trying to make it heroic gear or anything, just somehow measurable. Like, I mean, even if they brought back PvP power or damage reduction on it or something, in PvP combat or something, because like Miss Pandaria had PvP power and resilience, and then wow, someone's cocooning me in the mall or the order hall. That's kind of cool. Anyway, so like I said, there were some ways that they solved it without making PvP a lot better than PvE gear, whether it was the PvP power and the resilience, or the trinkets giving mitigation, or anything of that sort. So I mean, there's different ways they can do it. I mean, it's kind of hard to say exactly what they could do at this point, but yeah, it's pretty rough.
It certainly is.
All right, I guess we'll move to the next question. Can you name a few positive changes this expansion has brought to World PvP?
Well, there's certainly more people out in the world. There's more reason to be out in the world. Um, world quests, PvP objectives, etc., etc. But aside from that, I can't really think of any positives. That might sound a little harsh, but that's really the only good thing that Blizzard really really did for World PvP is entice people to go out into the world and do these things and encounter other people. But there's just no other incentive to kill the horde that's hitting the same mob as you, or tagged on the same boss. I mean, I don't even find myself doing that necessarily as often as I should for a quote unquote world PvP, world PvPer. I just it's almost like a nuisance sometimes. But it it really depends. There might be some other positives that somebody else might be able to come up with, but for me, it definitely it's that's just about it.
Yeah, that's the only one I could think of as well in terms of positive changes. I would wish that they could somehow expand on the whole world questing and stuff. Like the Warden Tower, for example, like in Burning Crusade, we had like those towers and zones that you would remain control of, or Hala, or anything of that. I think it would be really nice if they somehow brought some kind of control aspect or something of that sort, to make you want to continuously keep it up. Whether it was giving a zone buff or something, a daily to keep it covered, similar to like a Wintergrass quest. I think they can expand on it better, because right now it doesn't, like, I mean, it's great so far for anyone that needs the artifact power and stuff, but like personally, I don't even go and do those Warden Quest towers anymore, because I just feel like there's no reason, whether it's the artifact power or anything. The only time I really go back to them is if someone like Helter asks me if I want to defend it, or in one case there, you decided to use the tower as a defensive point, and then we wiped Ironsworn Regiment up at the top of the tower. But other than that, I don't really have an incentive to go unless I specifically want to find people. So then I sit up top. But I notice that even when I'm up top there defending the target, the players either just leave or they just cross realm it, or like there's no actual real incentive to make them think, hey, I really want to fight for this kind of thing. They just end up leaving right away.
Yeah. There just really isn't a reason to fight back. Aside from factional pride. Where you get enjoyment out of it for one reason or another. It's just one of those things that it doesn't actively reward you. So just a lot of people just don't do it.
Yeah, unfortunately. We covered a lot of topics in regarding to World PvP, but I'm still going to ask this question anyway. Can you name a few negative changes this expansion brought to World PvP? You don't have to go in depth. You can just kind of like give a generic answer, like sharding or the removal of world defense channels.
Okay. Yeah, I would say pretty much everything that we've covered in here actually. Sharding, the lack of templates, PvP gear not necessarily being viable, or even worth getting. The lack of world defense too, that really, that really killed it for a lot of people. And like I said earlier, I don't think it's necessarily as bad as a lot of people make it out to be, but for a lot of people it is a deal breaker. But like I said, pretty much everything that we've covered already is really contributed to the downfall of World PvP as some people see it.
Yeah, unfortunately, most of the requested topics were basically negative things, aside from, I don't know, like the followers and toys and stuff or anything of that sort. Because like a huge lack of toys this expansion, so like that's actually a pretty beneficial thing as well, I guess. They kind of toned down on it. I mean, followers, I guess, kind of count, and legendaries, but things like Avianos where you can easily escape, some of those have kind of just disappeared. So I mean, I guess some topics requested were neutral or positive, but yeah, for the most part, anything we covered that viewers requested were pretty much negative anyway. So if anything, it was more like a summary. Last thing, I guess. I guess we kind of covered a lot of this anyway, but last question would be, what kind of changes would you like to see going forward?
Um, I'd like to see PvP gear base eye level scaled up, or just the gearing system that was in Warlords of Draenor going back to the way that it was. Obviously, add world defense back. There's not really any reason that had to go. I'd like to see sharding go, but at the same time, I don't necessarily want to see sharding go. There's a couple downsides, a couple upsides. I think I'm leaning more towards seeing it go. If only to see more people out in the world. Whether that's good, bad, or indifferent. Things. These aren't major things that Blizzard would have to do. They're little fixes that they could do in a hot fix if they wanted to. The gearing system, they might have to. They might have to implement in a patch, but everything else could be done in a hot fix. It's just that Blizzard doesn't want to do it. They think players don't want it. The casual crowd does want it. Or any number of things like that.
Yeah, I would agree. Like most of it is pretty simple. Like, I mean, I doubt they'll ever get rid of sharding, but honestly, I feel like it's, as far as I know, it's not as bad. I'm sure a lot of players would disagree with that, but obviously we would prefer it to just go. It sounds like I'm okay with it right now. I haven't deeply been affected by it aside from the pre-patch months ago, but if it doesn't seem to be a big issue in major cities, whether it's attacking or defending, it's probably fine. But as we both said, whether sharding could stay or go, we would prefer it to go. I doubt it. But would you think sharding is fine the way it is currently, though? Like, I doubt they're going to get rid of it, but do you think it would be fine the way it is? Or it's fine right now?
Even if it stayed the way that it was, as long as some of the other things were fixed, I don't think it would be a huge issue. I think some people would still find a way to complain about it, but I don't see it as a game-breaking thing myself. And like I said earlier, there are some ways around it, so...
Yeah, I definitely agree as well. I think the biggest complaint about sharding is really how it messes up roleplay itself, not actually PvP. So, I mean, that's actually kind of separate. If you're organizing RP PvP, it might ruin it a little bit, but I think outside of that, like regular world PvP, I think it's okay if they chose to like keep it. I mean, we would prefer it not to stay, but it's fine as long as the other stuff, as you said, like basically the other stuff is higher priority, is what it sounds like. Like the rewards and incentives, I mean, we've kind of been fine without them anyway. I would even possibly argue that the current reward, where you actually level up your talents and stuff and prestige, is probably better. Since, I mean, honestly, you didn't really get any honor in the first place. It was like 1 per kill, not a big deal. Removal of the World Defense channel, I would definitely agree. Seeing that come back, there's just no reason why it got removed. A lot of players use it. A lot of guilds sometimes use it. I remember, because like I personally did not go to the RP base a lot. I didn't go to Tier's Hand stuff. I just prefer to stay in the Order Hall where I have my hearth and everything. But as soon as I would see it being attacked from outside of the zone, I can instantly fly over if I needed to, or someone can call it out in guild if they see it, because some people don't use the channel. So World Defense channel just definitely has to come back. It just makes no sense why it's gone. It promotes activity, whether it's guild or not guild, solo, everything. People that just want to fight, it's a good way to provoke. Templates, that's another one. Personally, I think it would be worth giving a try, trying it out, seeing a lot of classes being taken down a notch, whether it's rogues currently because they're basically gods, especially with the legendary, or my class with Windwalkers being gods as well. A lot of damage reduction possibly. Most specs didn't really get damage reduced, so it might not fix everything, but it might fix a good amount. Followers, toys, legendaries. Same thing with templates. If it were to disable legendaries, I don't know if one would want to have that or not. I would personally prefer legendaries disabled upon PvP combat, but I mean, I really doubt that's going to happen. If something like legendary ring stayed, I don't see it changing. I think it really, like, personally, if I wanted to just be simple, I just don't want people to be one-shotted or getting, or like me one-shotting or myself getting one-shotted. I actually want to be able to use my entire toolkit without having to touch a karma 5 seconds into combat. That's probably the only thing, is reducing damage. That's like my only wish, honestly.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And that's why some classes that have immunities are so far ahead of others. Because some classes just have such strong openers, or very predictable burst, and just being able to, just bubble, karma, bop, cloak, or ice block, these things, it gives you such an advantage over, over other classes that can't necessarily do that, so.
Yeah, I mean, I could be, like, this could be a completely terrible suggestion. I would hope it's not, but, like, we used to have tier sets for PvP, whether it was our 4-piece or whatever. Like, I used to have 50% karma baseline, but when I had my 4-piece, I would get 100%. And then that was my 2-piece. And then my 4-piece would be Tiger Brew would give me damage reduction when I used it. And then we had the trinkets with the damage reduction. I know for a fact that not only just in World PvP, but as you know as well, in Instance PvP, damage is just too high. So, like, I think what I can see them making a very easy fix is make the gear less RNG. That way you can get off vendors and stuff. Don't make every piece, like, a non-set. Like, give PvP armor a tier set or whatever it is that we usually used to get. And then put some kind of mitigation on it. That way it reduces damage in arenas and whatnot, while also reducing damage out in the area World PvP as well. I think that would be a pretty quick fix as well, without having to do a whole bunch of, like, template stuff or anything.
Yeah, I think that's something that could definitely be implemented, and that would definitely hurt, or not hurt, help. That could definitely help as well.
I mean, yeah, I think it's worth a try, considering, I mean, like, what do you have to lose? Alright, so I think we basically covered everything that has to be said. Is there anything you want to conclude off with, anything?
Not that I can think of, but I really encourage the people that say World PvP is dead, World PvP is dying, or they complain about the opposite faction camping or killing them. Instead of going back to your Order Hall or going back to Dalaran or blue flagging or, just leaving the zone, don't be passive, fight back, form a group, kick them out. That's really what sparks World PvP, and a lot of people don't do that anymore. They just want to go out, they'd rather not fight at all. They'd rather just get their stuff done and then, go back to being AFK in Dal or their Order Hall. And, that's one thing that's really affected world PvP is just how passive people are, you know? I mean, why run from a fight, um, when you can just, fight back and, win. And, nothing feels better than winning, beating someone that's camping you, beating a rival guild, any of these things. But a lot of people just don't do that anymore.
Yeah, I'm definitely guilty on that. Like for example, Tumble Run Brew that I get for a monk, it gives me infinite rolls. For the first couple months there, when I would do my world quests, I would always put that on, and whenever someone engaged me, all I would do was immediately run away with Tumble Run and everything, so they couldn't kill me. I wouldn't actually engage because, like, I can't stand the way World PvP is right now as like a 1v1 type thing. But I don't mind it as a group. Like when we were at the Warden Tower that one time, or when I was with TMO at Meridale there versus D7. Like I like the group world PvP still. Granted, it's not as good as it used to be. I still don't mind it. It's just by myself. But like if someone's camping like Lorleth Hill, I guess it's called in what's that zone called, Velshara. Um, like there was one point there where I was with a group of 4 or 5 with Helter, I think, and we were just camping the flight path and we were killing people, not because we're dicks or anything, but because we're trying to force people or provoke people into making a group and coming to fight as group versus group, because you can't just randomly sit there and be like, hey guys, come attack us. No one's going to do that. So the best way to force that kind of thing is by attacking a city or a town, and in this case it would be the town with the emissary chest. But instead of people forming a group and trying to fight us back, they just simply run away and bitch at us.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm guilty of doing that, or I should say, we're guilty of doing that as well. And a lot of people take it very personally. It's not that we hate these players that we kill, or we want to ruin their World of Warcraft experience. We want them, like you said, we want them to fight back. We want to get a fight. Even if we lose, we get kicked out, whatever. At least we're PvPing. But for a lot of people, that's just not, that's not even a thought in their head. They just, they'll get out, go to the forums and complain. I've seen that a lot recently. Or like the other day, they'll go over to their alliance alt and complain at you.
Yeah, I had that a couple times, especially from some guildies from Pride of Lothar. Even came and messaged me, really, you're really cross-realming with Bleeding Hollow people? And I just responded like, no, I'm actually in a group with only ED players. We're just trying to provoke a fight. If they ever see this, which I doubt they will, but if they did, they would know exactly who they are. But yeah, it's also the same with RP PvP, like organizing. No one really wants to organize anything anymore. Like Pride of Lothar and Phoenix Highguard had that thing on Alaquildonis. Before I transferred the same day I had organized PvP with Pride of Lothar and Dawn of the Horde one day there. I think it was October. So like not a whole lot of that goes on anymore either. I don't know if it's Pride or what. Back in Warlords, there were a few Horde guilds that we ran into in Stromgarde, and they weren't happy that we were using strategy to beat them. Like those were their words. Why do you take it so seriously, organizing a group and target calling and stuff? It ruins the fun. Like that was one of the responses Kagranat got because of a couple fights in Stromgarde, which was pretty disappointing. I don't know if it's an ego thing or what, but like it's not even just the state of world PvP with the too much damage and stuff. I think it's also just the way guilds are too, people being passive.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, that's actually one of the biggest reasons why I transferred. Like one of the reasons that was holding me back is, Alliance. I know Pride of Lothar was very active in Warlords. Some of the most fun times. I still go look at those old videos of hitting Silvermoon and whatnot. But now everyone, including Pride of Lothar, is just less active. I don't know any other guilds now besides yours that still goes out. And you're like, I joined TMO, and I guess because everything's guild centered, I don't get anybody saying, hey, you want to come along. You're pretty much the only person that invites me, which is kind of upsetting because like I don't want to have to leave TMO to find groups for stuff, which sucks. But
yeah, no, I definitely get you, and I try to really get as many people into our events as possible, and that I don't always necessarily do that. If we have an even numbered fight, or a set fight going on, I won't call in the cavalry, to zerk down the opposition, but
Yeah, like I mean, I think that's just the state of world PvP in general is, like I'm not saying it's just Alliance, but
User
like
joined your channel.
hello, right near the end too.
What's up, bro?
one sec, Chris.
Yeah, we got like a couple minutes.
I'll talk to you in a second.
User was moved out of your channel.
Well, yeah, like it's
Sorry
not even.
about that.
Oh, it's fine. It's fine. It's not even just Alliance either. It's just because I was Alliance, it felt like more Alliance. Like WSB says it all the time. Alliance doesn't defend their cities. Well, there's a good reason for that against WSB specifically, but outside of that, whether it's organizing something like Horde is just as guilty too. No one really wants to organize anything. So it's not even just the state of Blizzard's game for World PvP. It's also just the players as well these days. Like a lot of people look back at vanilla. Everyone participated in the Cell Shore and stuff, regardless of what level they were. And then now you have people who are just too afraid to 1v1 or too afraid to, send out a group of 5 or anything of that sort. It would be nice to see people's state of mind change, as well as the quality of World PvP itself change on Blizzard's part as well. Is there anything you want to conclude on for sure this time? Because I think we pretty much covered everything.
No, I think that's pretty much it. We went pretty in depth, so.
Yeah, we did. I think that I might have to make this a 2-part video. I don't know if people will go through an hour and 20 minutes in one sitting. I mean, I would do it if I was like just running through Alduar and stuff weekly. I don't do that anymore,
exactly.
But if I did, like I would watch the occasional commentary of something like Nixium discussing Danterius or something, and then I would just throw that in the background while running Alduar. So that's a good way to kill an hour for sure. I guess we'll just leave it there though. We pretty much covered everything. Again, anyone that's somehow made it to the end, I have links in the description below. You can check out Emerald Dream's opinions on World PvP. If Blizzard ever sees this, I doubt it, but if they did, same thing. Everyone's given their opinions. We've given ours here. I guess we'll leave it at that. I just want to thank Danterius, GM of Order of the Blue Wyvern, Alliance on Emerald Dream. I might even have to put Nightwind in your guild, because you guys are pretty active. I don't know anyone else. But...
Well, I appreciate you coming along to events and bringing me on the show as well.
Quote-unquote show. First weekly. I'm sure the other topics will be a lot shorter. World PvP is a huge topic to talk about. A lot. Oh yeah, that's the other thing too. Anything you guys want to request for the next weekly stuff, just let me know. I do want to touch on the state of healing right now in arenas, rewards in arenas, other aspects as well. Feedback on lore, feedback on dungeons, mythic pluses. There's tons of stuff I can talk about, not just PvP. So we'll see how it goes. Leave your guys' suggestions down below. Again, thanks for coming on and discussing World PvP with me. It gets boring just talking by myself, so...
Yeah,
we'll just leave it
absolutely.
at that,
Thanks
man.
again for having me.
Yeah, man. All right, I'll see you guys on my next video. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you.